is TriPoint Conversations, and I'm your host, Christina Lowe. And today I'm sitting down with David Cooper, a corporate and business attorney based here in Louisville. But that title doesn't really tell the full story. David has spent decades not just advising businesses, but building them, owning 7 companies, raising capital, working inside large corporations like LG&E, and now helping entrepreneurs navigate everything from formation to acquisitions. David, I'm really glad you're here.
Good morning, Christina.
Good
Great
morning.
to be here.
Thanks. All right, let's get started. Before you were advising businesses, you were building them. You've owned multiple companies and operated in different industries. Take me back to that time. What did that look like, and how did you get into that?
Well, it's a rather involved question, but we'll do the best we can. After I graduated law school at University of Kentucky in let's see, it was 76, my first position was a trademark examiner attorney in the Patent and Trademark Office. I then went into private practice with an intellectual property firm in Washington. And then I made a career path change. There were 4 sons in our family, and Dad had a family business. I worked in the family businesses when I was in law school, really enjoyed it. Dad had a young partner who became like the 5th brother in the family, and Ron and I were extremely close. And so Dad said, you're the only one that has a business aptitude. By any chance, would you be interested in coming back and buying out my half interest and taking over the family businesses? In retrospect, being a grandfather now myself, I can understand how Mom and Dad probably behind the scenes, so to speak, had the hope, the ambition that one of their sons would come back to Louisville. The other 3 didn't stay in Louisville. But I was enthralled by the chance to be back in business. So we came back. Helene and I moved in 79 back to Louisville. And we developed the company. The major company was called Ronalco. We were refractory distributors, industrial furnace contractors. We were in foundries and forges and heat treat shops and power plants. And so the businesses went really well. We diversified. We had a specialty concept that we developed to have special refractory linings, particularly in porcelain enameling furnaces. And so from 79 to 88, Ronalco grew and expanded for a lot of reasons. We started separate entities. We had a separate company for general contracting, a steel fabrication company, a manufacturing facility for refractory specialties. And we actually had a travel agency at one point in time. We had a few other peripheral businesses. We bought a business in Knoxville, Tennessee, Cherokee Porcelain Enamel that made all the Cracker Barrel signs. We retrofitted the furnaces. They couldn't pay us, so we took over the company. But to kind of fast forward it, there was another company out of Pittsburgh that had ambitions of moving into our marketing area. And so after a lot of discussion, I said, well, if you really want us to take over to be involved in selling your line of refractories, I guess the best thing to do is to buy us. And so we entered into negotiations. We sold all the business interests to this holding company back in 1988. I then became a business consultant with an accounting firm. But being a trained attorney and taking care of all the financial, administrative, and legal matters with all 7 of these companies during those 7-8 years, I really wanted to gravitate back into the practice of law. So my good friend, an attorney at that time, David Roth, said, let's start a boutique firm. And we did. It was called Roth & Cooper. We did about 23 private placements, many of which were with Texas Roadhouse and Tumbleweed. We then merged into Goldberg & Simpson. They wanted to expand their corporate department. And then to my great surprise, Corporate America knocked on my door, and that was LG&E. And they said, David, we need a corporate business commercial transactional attorney that can take care of all the myriad of contracts that we have in supply chain and procurement and project engineering, generation, intellectual property, informational technology. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't have to originate clients anymore. This would be a nice transition. I always enjoyed wearing a hard hat. I was in power plants before. And then they laid me off because they had the merger with PPL. So here I was at age 60, trying to discern, what am I going to do next? So I had offers to go into senior positions with other law firms. I thought about buying a business. And eventually I said, you know what, I'm going to be a sole practitioner. I'm rather entrepreneurial myself. And so since 2012, I'm the law office of David H. Cooper. I've been doing corporate business transactional work since 2012 as a sole practitioner.
So right now, you're not inside businesses every day. You're really seeing them from the outside and
Correct.
helping them do different things. Is there something you see easier now than when you were inside the business as you're sitting outside and supporting businesses?
When I talk to entrepreneurs, I sense several things. You have to have a passion for the business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the nature of that business. But if you're really going to be successful, you have to expand your horizons. For example, you may be an electrician, but if you're going to run an electrical company, you have to know something about purchasing, about taking care of marketing, financing,
Mm-hmm.
dealing with legal concepts. Those entrepreneurs who expand horizons beyond their very initial narrow expertise are the ones that really succeed. So, to answer your question, when I look at entrepreneurs, do they have that perseverance? Do they have the guts? Do they have the understanding of what it's going to take to expand their horizons to really be successful? So they can't be myopic in terms of what they look at in running a business. They have to be a good generalist as well.
Mm-hmm. And you're often brought in at points when something matters, like a deal or a partnership or a decision. When someone calls you, what's usually happening in their world at that point?
Well, sometimes, clients come to me and it's usually when the business is not doing well and they say, I'm having partnership problems. We're having issues. If they weren't represented by competent counsel initially, a lot of times there's not a buy-sell. And so you go through what I call a corporate divorce. It can be highly contentious, but there's many times that I counsel the equity owners of the business. I get a waiver of conflict of interest so I can represent the transaction and everyone involved in the business and try to find a peaceful and resolution to try to separate them if need be, or better yet, just try to make them understand that together they may be better than separately, and let's refine the purpose for why they got involved in business initially. That's one thing that I find, unfortunately, that happens with businesses, and particularly when they're not doing well. If they're doing well, then if they're not motivated by greed, typically the partners tend to do well with each other.
So I have to assume from your point of view, it's much better for partnerships to come together with counsel up front to get the agreements in place than waiting until something happens.
Yes, it is. Different partners have different goals and ambitions and objectives. There's a lot of situations where you have a sweat equity partner that has the expertise. Typically, they're younger. Sometimes you have another partner that is more passive and is basically playing the role of the banker and providing the foundation for a line of credit. And there's creative ways that you can structure, particularly in a limited liability company, where after certain economic milestones are reached by the sweat equity partner, that the ownership percentages change. So you may have a sweat equity individual that may only have a 25% interest and the deep pocket may have 75. But once those objectives are met, it could be a flip where maybe the sweat equity person may have 75 and the passive member may have a 25% interest in the company, which is like an annuity going forward.
Yeah.
So understanding what the objectives are of the members is very important. Do they want to be passive? Do they want to be active? And in structuring the operating agreement, you can provide for shifting ownership interest that just gives a creative solution to trying to manage their objectives. Also, it's important in the operating agreement that you have to have governance provisions in case there's deadlock, and how do you handle that? So your threshold question, it's best to have competent legal counsel involved to consider the whole foundation of this economic relationship and to try to put onto paper provisions that will minimize any type of disruptions by one partner wanting to leave.
And, right now in the age of AI, are you seeing where people are leaning towards AI to put these agreements together and then coming to you, or? Yeah.
That's a great question. Yes, it's sort of the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
Too many people are relying on AI to draft their own agreements, or they go online and they use certain forms. that is fraught with peril. Even when you go to legal seminars, it's a real hot topic right now. You can't rely upon AI to do your legal research because oftentimes it's incorrect. So it's helpful. It can give an overview as to a transaction, but really when clients start playing lawyer by themselves, not understanding all the nuances and the legal concepts that are involved, using artificial intelligence to try to, give them definitive reasons for why they should proceed one way or another is often very problematic.
And because you have had so much experience, as you go into businesses to support them, what do you see your role as?
Obviously is to structure the transaction. Then I often get involved in drafting the basic contract forms that they need because you have to have provisions in a contract to talk about how you can get paid, indemnifications, warranty. There's a host of issues. So contract forms are important to do, to draft for the clients. I also counsel them as a business advisor. It's just because I've had so much business experience. I mean, I do bring value-added holistic insights into my legal representation. So in many situations, I almost function as a business advisor and coach for them. There's many times that I go to and refer experts like you to various areas. Marketing is not necessarily my best skill set, but to try to help them address issues and concerns that they don't really think about, like purchasing. You can save so much more money in a business by doing prudent purchasing. And many entrepreneurs overlook that. Or, do they have employment covenants not to compete? Are their key employees? Are they really getting the best financial considerations from their lender? Should they refinance at a certain point in time? How do they minimize their personal exposure and their liability? So I look at a business in its totality and often sort of my role is almost as a general counsel to some of my larger clients.
So when we talk about partnerships and people getting together, when two people do get into business together, what do you think they are agreeing to compared to what they're actually agreeing to that they might not fully understand in a business partnership?
The downside. If there's a line of credit and there's joint and several liability that's involved, you need to know the financial wherewithal of the other partner or partners. If, for example, you have a line of credit at a bank, let's say you're the deep pocket, the bank deems itself to be insecure, they call the line of credit, they may go after all your assets. But then you need a cross-indemnification agreement that you go after your other partners to make yourself whole, so to speak, on a pro rata position. So that's one thing that partners just don't really think about is to what extent are they going to have to pledge personal assets to fund the operations of the company, and can all of them do it equally? And sometimes they can't. So you have to make adjustments in terms of allocations of income and distribution of cash to try to make it equitable and fair between them. So I think financing is a situation that they don't often think about. They say, okay, we're going to start the business with $100,000, but are they planning for a rainy day fund that they may need at some point in time? That there's always contingencies that arise and the unforeseen circumstances that you have to address. So the inadequate capitalization is a real problem with small businesses.
So I was going to ask, what conversations do you wish partners would have early on? And it sounds like finances and
being transparent with each other as to their financial status, providing and exchanging financial statements. I think that's critically important. I think also you need to talk about exit strategies. You may have one partner that may have a shorter term perspective. It could be the deeper pocket, so to speak, someone who's providing the money. Well, how is he or she going to be compensated at so many years in the future? What's going to be their internal rate of return? Do they decide on what's going to be agreed upon payout? Or if it's going to be based upon a valuation of the business, how's it going to be calculated? Exit strategies are important. When you get involved in a business, you need to also be thinking conversely, okay, what happens if things go well or they don't go well? And how's that exit strategy going to be implemented?
So you've seen a lot of decisions play out over time. What's a decision that you can think back on that probably felt small in the moment, but ended up being a much bigger impact later on?
Well, I think I've seen this with family businesses where you have, parents and children that are involved in business and grandchildren come into the business. I don't think they often think about the succession planning. At first, everyone's excited about getting involved in the business. They're not thinking what's going to happen 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
But you may have, in terms of business succession planning, you may bring your children to business. Well, some of your children may be involved, some may not.
Mm-hmm.
So that ties into estate planning. How do you compensate the children who are going to not be involved in the business relative to those that are, to equalize your estate gifting and so forth, so that it's equitable and fair, upon your passing or your retirement, on how you're going to split the profits of the business.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any stories of how that's worked out well, or maybe not as well?
I got a few stories. I have to maintain confidentiality, of course.
Yeah.
I had one recent situation where actually the father handled it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the situation I was alluding to before. Had two sons who were active in the business, had a daughter who was not.
Mm-hmm.
And his son-in-law was also involved in the business. Who was going to take charge in the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
How were they going to be compensated? I had to talk to him. It was more than just business succession planning. It tied in integrally to his estate planning. He listened, and I brought in an estate planning attorney that I work with frequently. And together we sat down and we worked out a plan that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sat down with the two sons, the daughter and the son-in-law, and said, look, this is how mom and dad are planning to take care of the transition of this business when it becomes more mature. We want you to know about it in advance.
Mm-hmm.
I think being proactive, especially in family succession, is critically important.
And it sounds like upfront communication as well. So
Yes.
Everyone knows what's going to happen.
You have to have an awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be thinking, again, you don't want families to be torn asunder. I've seen that happen many times.
Mm-hmm.
And it grieves me when you see families that are just fractured, sometimes irrevocably, forever.
Mm-hmm.
You see greed, unfortunately, come to the surface. So a good corporate business lawyer tries to be proactive in minimizing those types of fracturing situations.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you talked about, you've worked on, is raising capital and structuring deals. For someone listening who's never been part of that world, what's really happening behind the scenes that people don't realize?
Well, when you raise capital for deals, you have to make sure that obviously if you're loaning money to the business, that obviously is going to be repaid. You have to be thinking about what happens if it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if it adversely affects your line of credit at a bank? So much about business is the contingencies that arise,
Mm-hmm.
and we need additional capital. Sometimes it could be because you're involved in a bad deal, you have to cover your losses. Other times is that you want to expand and grow into different areas, and you need to have the capital to grow into that.
And as you think about evaluating risk now compared to how you thought about it earlier on in your career, what do you think's changed over the years? Or has it changed?
Fundamentally, I don't really think it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people lose the passion for what they're doing. Sometimes human nature being what it is, they think the grass is greener on the other side. They may want to withdraw from the business. It's just a myriad of psychology that people go through in a business that, reflects the changes you have to address.
And have you ever seen a deal where everything looked right, but you knew something was a little bit off?
Absolutely.
And how did you deal with
Absolutely. It's my own story. When we were being bought out by the Pittsburgh company, we were about a week away from closing, and it was a stock deal. We were going to take stock, and with my accountant, we kept doing financial analysis, a lot of due diligence and investigation, and I felt very uncomfortable. I felt that they were over leveraged. I wasn't overly impressed with the performance they did of other companies similar to ours that they purchased. And so here we were a week away from closing, and I said, we're not doing this deal if it's a stock deal.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do an asset purchase deal, and I'll take 10% less in cash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking your stock. My partner was very concerned this was going to, quash the deal.
Yeah.
I said, I just think there's going to be a mistake if we take stock. And it was fortuitous. That's the best business decision I ever made on my own behalf, because the company went bankrupt 13 months after they bought us.
Wow.
So the stock that we would have taken would have been worthless.
Mm-hmm.
So the old adage, cash is king, is correct.
Yeah.
So, that's a situation where you went into, you're excited, you think the deal's going to go through, and I was all set on taking stock and so forth, but realized that even at the last minute, my gut reaction told me something was not right about this company. And so that's the best business decision that I ever made.
A week before.
A week
closing.
before.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we can't go through with this. And I said, well, then so be it.
Yeah.
But
Because you had
I
that
negotiated.
feeling.
I said, I'll take 10% less if you pay in cash.
Mm-hmm.
And they agreed to it.
Yeah.
So that's a different expectation than what I originally had.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When people come to you thinking about starting a business, what are you listening for in that conversation to help guide their decision in it?
It's a great question. I look at psychological aspects. I ask the individual what they did before.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to make sure there's no covenant not to compete to preclude them from going into this business venture. But I like to know their history. I like to get a sense for what they really know about this business concept, what type of other businesses they may or may not been involved with, what type of management experience, an intuitive feel as to do they understand the perils of entrepreneurship, do they understand the risk that they're getting involved in. I've had a lot of people thank me for saying, David, you talked me out of it.
Okay.
It's not right for me. Entrepreneurship is not best for everybody. And they think about the upside, but they don't think about, okay, well, you're going to have to pledge your house and your other assets and your on a line of credit. And if it goes south, you could lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have their eyes open as to what the risks are involved. And I think my role is to identify, assess, and minimize what those risks are. So it's sort of a psychological analysis apart from the legalities of how to structure a deal that I think are really important.
So it sounds like when people come to you, they're thinking about all the upside and
for sure. Yeah. So many clients have illusions of grandeur. Well, we're going to be franchising in 2 or 3 years. No, you're not going to be franchising in 2 or 3 years in all likelihood. You'll be lucky if you just take care of your one operation before you tend to license, much less think about franchising. So, I don't like to pour cold water in anybody's aspirations, but I like for them to be realistic.
Yeah. And have you seen someone go forward with a business that you didn't think was going to go so well, and how did that work out?
Yes, several situations. There was one young lady who came to me that had an inheritance of over $1 million, and she decided she wanted to be an entrepreneur. She had no prior experience. I tried to talk her out of it. She wanted to establish a series of beauty salons, basically. And she was a hairdresser herself, but very good hairdresser, but didn't have the skill sets and entrepreneurial understanding to really grow this concept. So I tried to talk her out of it, and her boyfriend was involved. That was another complication. I said, he shouldn't be involved in your financing. And to make a long story short, they entered to the business, and the business failed about 6 months later, and he absconded with quite a bit of the money. So I said, you could put that $1 million in the bank and you wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
So yes, I've seen some real problems happen. Not everybody takes your advice.
Yeah. And what about some advice that you've given that really they've taken and flourished? The
comment that I made earlier that entrepreneurs who expand their horizons are those who really do best. And I challenged them that. I said, are you willing to have personal growth? Are you willing to take educational courses? Are you willing to do whatever it takes and understand that there's going to be tough times? How are you going to emotionally react to it? Is your significant other or spouse, are they buying into this? That's a real problem. Everybody needs to be on the same page. I think, those are some of the situations that I've seen.
So you've had a front row seat to a lot of businesses over time. When you take a step back, what do the businesses that actually work tend to do differently?
I think marketing is key.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have the revenue coming through the door, and then you have to prudently manage the business. If you're lucky and you come into some good money, you don't go spend it. You invest it in your business, or you save it for a rainy day fund. You have to live within your means. I've seen that being a real problem with entrepreneurs. Those are some of the situations I've seen.
And then on the flip side, what's something that looks completely fine on the surface, but when you've learned is usually a sign something's off underneath when a business isn't working as well as it should be?
Well, if you have multiple members and you sense that there's not a meshing between them for some reason, that certainly could cause a downward spiral very quickly.
Yeah. And if someone's listening in the middle of building something right now, they're thinking about building their own business, what's one thing you tell them to pay closer attention to than they probably are?
Well, again, their financial resources.
Yeah.
They have to understand that it's an all-inclusive situation. It's going to affect every aspect of their life psychologically. I mentioned this before. Is their spouse or significant other buying into it? Sometimes the entrepreneur may be investing his money, but may need some money that may be coming from the wife. Wife may be coming into money and so forth. That can cause obviously a lot of issues between spouses.
Yeah.
I think that's overlooked a lot. Many times when particularly a guy comes in and wants to start his business, I have an introductory conversation with him and so forth. And a lot of times I say, I'd like to meet with your wife next. Now, most lawyers wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But I can tell by looking at their forecasts and projections that, and their personal financial statements that this may likely involve pledging of assets that may be owned separately by the spouse and so forth. I think it's just, it helps in client management to give an overall awareness that this is a family endeavor. When you drive down the road and you see shopping centers and there's places that are empty, some family has personal guarantees and they're in economic distress. And I just like clients to be overall very aware of the risk. Yes, the upside is there, but you can't divorce yourself from what happens if things just don't occur.
All right. Next, I want to shift into a lightning round, quick question answer. What is the biggest mistake you see business owners make?
Well, obviously, I think if they're not getting legal advice first, and I say competent legal advice, you need to be dealing with someone who is in the corporate business transactional world. I've seen situations where people enter into arrangements to buy or sell a business. And boy, they should have consulted me or another business lawyer at first on the memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent. And then they come to me after the fact. And then there's all type of quibbling that goes on between the parties because they didn't think of all the facts and circumstances. I just think you have to do your due diligence in any type of transaction. And I think having the engagement of a lawyer earlier rather than late, I think is most beneficial. And that's a common mistake.
What is something you believe about businesses that some people would disagree with you on?
Well, if I pour cold water on their ambitions, I mean, they're certainly going to disagree with that, although some thank me after the fact. Just not having an overall awareness of how all-encompassing entrepreneurship is it's just critical. I see that being a real common problem.
What is something people would be surprised to learn about you?
Well, I think that people talk to me and they say, David, you got such a diverse background. You never know what happens in life. You never know. I had a double major in history and a minor in religion in college. And here I was involved in Rust Belt technology and power plants. And I have a real engineering aptitude. I think if I wasn't a lawyer, I probably would have been an engineer. But I think it's just the diversification that I've been through. I've, been a business owner of 7 different businesses and managed them. I've been a senior partner in attorneys. I've been general counsel in public companies. It's just a lot of diversity that I've been through in my life. And I think you have to embrace that and understand that that's normal. We all are faced with turns in the road that you don't anticipate. It's how you adjust to it and take advantage of those opportunities.
As you face those obstacles, what do you think has helped you most get through them?
I think you have to have self-confidence. You have to have perseverance. You have to have tenacity. You have to think smart. You have to realize that you're going to make mistakes, but you don't repeat them twice. You just have to adjust and be flexible. Those are some of the attributes that I think that I have that has added to my success.
A favorite vacation spot?
Well, we tend to always go visit the grandchildren, but I love Colorado. I love the mountains. Beaches are fine, but mountains are my dream. So I like to visit Colorado.
hiking, skiing, or exploring?
Well, when I was younger and didn't have all these back issues, used to enjoy hiking, like when you go out to the mountains and so forth. Golf is still remains a passion of mine. I've always enjoyed playing golf.
And finally, what advice would you tell yourself early on in your career?
Expect the unexpected. Don't be rattled by it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Take advantage of new opportunities. Don't prejudge things. Just be intuitive, believe in yourself. And I think you have to trust your gut. I tell clients that all the time.
Yeah.
You can be very intellectual about it, but at the end of the day, you need to step back from the situation and say, does this feel right to me? And is it going to satisfy me in terms of ambition and success? Is it going to give me, some type of reward that makes you feel good about your contributions? I think those are concerns that I typically have.
Yeah. All right. Well, David, thank you so much. What an adventure you've had. Thank you for sharing with us.
What deep question you gave to me. I didn't expect it. So I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. And thank you for listening to TriPoint Conversations.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to TriPoint Conversations. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend or someone who's navigating their own next chapter. And if you know a story that deserves to be heard, or maybe that story is yours, head to TriPointStrategicGroup.com and send me a note. I can't wait to keep this journey going with you and introduce you to more incredible people who are shaping their communities one story at a time.